wrong times on there. Your starting time was after the ending time.
What did the attorney say? 30 minutes.
That's true, man. Your starting time after you had it backwards. You didn't even get the time right.
I'm not understanding your question, sir.
What time did you start the interview?
I would have to refer to my notes to be able to tell you that.
Well, you don't have the actual interview?
Are you referring to the recording?
The transcript of it.
I don't have a transcript of it, no, sir.
Never received that? I'll get it out in a few minutes.
Okay.
You agree it was no more than 5, 6, 7 minutes, right?
Not necessarily. I don't know how long it was. That's not information I've committed to memory, sir.
How long are you estimating was it?
It was generally short, like I said. It was somewhere around the amount of time that Mr. Jones's was.
How many minutes?
I'm not going to agree to a time, sir. I don't recall.
I'll find the transcript a little later.
Yes, sir.
All right, so isn't it true when you spoke to Keyshawn Jones and Christopher Lowe, neither one of them they actually both told you no one in their car had a gun, right?
Not to their knowledge, no, sir.
Well, not to anyone's knowledge except theirs. That's what would have to be their knowledge, right?
At the time that I interviewed them, yes, sir.
And you interviewed them separately.
Yes, sir.
And they both specifically, I'll start with Keyshawn Jones, told you no one in his car had a gun, right?
Yes, sir.
And Chris Lowe told you the exact same thing. No one in his car had a gun, or the Cadillac.
Yes, sir.
And you know that's not true. Right?
At any point or at the time that I spoke with him, I'm not.
Well, at the moment you spoke to him, you wouldn't have known that, because that's what they told you, and you accepted that, right?
At the time, yes.
You found out an hour later, 5 o'clock, that Agent McMichael, with his canine gun detecting dog, found a gun, right?
A gun, yes, sir.
All right, and at that point, you said you didn't really know whose gun it was, right?
Correct.
The next morning or the next day, can you look at a computer base or a database and put a serial number in to find out who purchased the gun? No way to do that? All right, but you went to talk to Mr. Robinson, you said, and you made sure he wasn't on narcotics so he can give you a clear statement, right?
Well, I don't know what medications he was taking, but my point was I ensured that he was comfortable speaking with me and was not in a mental state where he could not provide an accurate interview.
You said that before. You said you checked it out, make sure he was not on narcotics or any kind of substance that would prevent him from talking clearly to you. You don't remember telling that to the jury earlier?
You're twisting what was said, sir.
Was he able to talk to you?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Robinson admitted once you showed him pictures of the gun that it was his, right?
No,
You didn't show him pictures?
I didn't.
When you showed him pictures?
There was no one with me.
Huh? So how did he see the gun? Did you bring the actual gun?
I did not.
What did you do? Just tell him the gun was found and he said it was his?
I believe I initially said that we found a gun on scene, and if it was his, he needed to be honest about it.
You never showed him any pictures?
Not at that time, no, sir. I didn't have the photos yet.
Okay. So April 8th, around what time? In the afternoon you spoke to him, or you don't remember?
I believe it was somewhere around 5 p.m.-ish.
All right, so the very next day, you're confirmed that somebody in Keyshawn Jones's vehicle, along with Christopher Lowe and the decedent, Mr. Gene Jacques, had a gun, right? You knew one person did on the 8th, right?
On the 8th, when I spoke to him, I found out that at some point somebody had a gun on their person, yes, sir.
Well, you don't think the gun was there, where he found it right there and dropped it right there. He brought it with him in the Cadillac with the other three fellas, right? You don't know?
That was the way it was described, yes, sir.
All right, so he brought the gun. So you knew, at least on the 8th, that Christopher Lowe and Keyshawn Jones lied to you about no one bringing a gun, right?
No.
Did you ever hear, did Mr. Mr. Robinson ever tell you that the decedent, Mr. Sebastian Jean Jacques, was very adamant for him to bring a gun in front of the Christopher Lowe and Keyshawn Jones when they were all together. Did you ever hear that from Mr. Robinson? Did anyone ever tell you that to follow up on that? That that's what Mr. Robinson said?
I believe you suggested that during my deposition.
And you didn't do nothing about it, right?
At that time, no.
To this day, you didn't do anything about it, did you?
Correct.
You never went to Keyshawn Jones and said, "Why'd you lie to me?" You guys knew. Your own friend said you all were there when at least you knew myself, Mr. Robinson, brought the gun. Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you confront him?
Because that's not something to just assume.
Well, if his friend says it, Mr. Robinson, that's not an assumption, is it?
I'm sorry?
Mr. Robinson said everyone in that car knew he was bringing a gun. That's an assumption?
I didn't have information from Mr. Robinson that he said to everyone that he had a gun.
He never told you that, right?
No, you told me that.
All right, well, did you take a look at his tape statement or ask the prosecutors for his deposition to see that he said that under oath a couple of weeks or a month or two after this incident happened?
No, I never got that transcript.
How come?
I just didn't.
But you love doing follow-up. He said it's the most important thing. Once the case doesn't start until after the arrest is made, right?
Follow-up starts once the arrest is made, yes, sir.
You shouldn't make an arrest until you get all the facts, right?
That's not how that works, sir.
Not how it works.
No.
So you arrest somebody and then you find out things and it could be too late. You've already ruined their life by accusing them of these heinous crimes, possibly, right?
No.
Oh, not in your book. You don't believe that.
Not at all.
So at 4 o'clock, let's talk about what you knew. You knew there was a shooting. You knew there was 39 shell casings, right?
Yes, sir.
On Redwood Drive.
Yes, sir.
You were told by two guys in the Cadillac who came out of the Cadillac where the decedent was that they went over there to talk to Mr. Rudolph, right?
Yes, sir.
And then violence ensued.
Yes, sir.
Right? That's kind of what you knew and went off of at that point. They didn't do anything wrong. They were innocent victims, is what they basically told you, right?
I don't know. That's not specifically what they told me.
I use the word innocent victim, but the gist of the conversation, they were telling you they didn't do anything wrong, right?
I mean, I'm not going to put words in their mouth, sir. They didn't state that.
Did they tell you they parked a block and a half away from Mr. Rudolph's home? That night when you first met him for the first time you interviewed him, the only time you interviewed Keyshawn Jones, did he tell you that?
I can't recall if they provided that specific detail. I know I had that detail, though.
You had it later on when you saw the video, right?
And when I spoke with Mr. Robinson as well, I can't recall if Keyshawn and Lowe discussed that specific detail.
They never told you that, did they?
I just said I can't recall, sir.
You knew this was a homicide case. You're coming to trial. The gentleman's fighting for his life. Another person died.
Overruled. Go ahead. Finish the question.
Another person died. My client's fighting for his life. Why wouldn't you be prepared and know what they told you or didn't tell you?
I said that specific detail. I don't recall on the top of my head.
Well, so you disagree and you believe it's possible they told you that they parked a block and a half when you spoke to them at the gas station at 40th and Broadway? That's your testimony that they may have told you that?
My testimony is that I can't recall if that specific detail was provided to me at that time.
Well, if it was, wouldn't you find that odd as a detective, even though you only had 3 or 4 cases? Wouldn't you find that odd? That parking a block and a half away and there's parking all over that neighborhood? Don't you find that strange?
Not particularly.
Not important, right?
I never said that.
Not particularly. What does that mean? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Not particularly. What does that mean? Why it's not particularly?
Well, there was an explanation given as to why they parked in that manner, and the explanation given was consistent with what took place.
What was the explanation? What's consistent with that explanation?
The explanation was that they parked down there as well as placed their phones in there because although they didn't necessarily go there with the intent to harm Mr. Rudolph, they were aware that there was a potential for a fight to occur. So they wanted to make sure that their belongings and that the vehicle was safe from that.
You don't find it suspicious as a police officer that somebody parks a block and a half away at 12 o'clock at night, getting involved in a grown man's relationship with a grown woman? You don't find that odd? They park a block and a half away. That doesn't ring a bell to you that these guys are up to no good? They're going to about to do something?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyone ever tell you that when they drove by Mr. Rudolph's home, the four guys in the car, they went directly in front of their house and started looking at cameras or saw the cameras?
No, sir.
Anyone ever tell you in that car that they passed the house first? They went right by the front door to do whatever they were going to do.
No, sir.
You think people park a block and a half away at 12 o'clock at night when there's parking all over the front of that house and the side of the house on 550 Teak Drive because they're about to do something like talking? Does that make sense to you?
I'm not sure what your question is, sir.
Well, you said not particularly. It didn't bother you. You thought it was not a big deal that they parked a block and a half away. It meant nothing to you, right?
I didn't say that.
Why didn't you question any? Why didn't you go back to Keyshawn Jones and ever question him about that and say, why'd you park a block and a half away? Why didn't you have another interview with him after the first one?
Because the content of the interview and the information that I was able to receive from him was very concise, it was very specific, and it provided me with the information that I needed to conduct my investigation.
Okay. Well, that sounds like gobbledygook. Can you explain that in English? What exactly you're talking about?
I just...
Any better than that? Can you give me examples of what you're referring to? Clear and concise and the information I needed. What does that mean?
I think I was very specific in my answer, sir.
Oh, it's the best you can do with that one?
It is argumentative. Next question, please.
All right. So you do a 10-minute interview and possibly another 10-minute interview, and then you leave the scene at 40th and Broadway?
No.
How long do you stay there?
I believe I said earlier I arrived, I believe I was there for about an hour and a half.
This look like the gas station that night?
I'm having a very hard time seeing what that is other than crime scene tape and West Palm Beach police vehicle.
Possible below the lights, Judge, so you can see better. No, that's worse. May the witness step down, Judge.
Of course. Go ahead, step down. Watch your step getting down, detective.
I'll hand you the microphone.
It's twisted around the stand as well. The cable. There you go.
Oh, yeah? No, it's not.
It's okay. I was able to see it.
Look like the gas station that you were at that night where the Cadillac was?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree the Cadillac was pulled all the way up to the fence area?
It was over in that direction, yes, sir.
All right. And did you ever talk to a West Palm Beach police officer? The first one who arrived, and at all? Did you ever talk to him?
I know I spoke with officers on scene. I can't recall if I specifically spoke with the first officer on scene.
Okay. Did you ever hear from the first officer or from one of his supervisors that he passed this area going north and had to make a U-turn and actually passed it again, then backed up, and the reflection of his lights actually hit the car, and that's when he backed up. His blue lights hit the car, and he saw two silhouettes back here by the fence area, in front of the fence area. Never heard that?
All that.
That could be important, right?
It could be.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
It could be.
Okay, it could be someone possibly hiding something behind the fence, right?
There's no evidence of that, sir.
Well, how could you find evidence if you don't even bother looking? Does it magically just show up?
No.
Well, how can you say there's no evidence of that? Because you didn't look, there's no evidence of that. But you don't really know if anything was back there because you never bothered checking, right?
If there's no evidence, no information that evidence exists, I don't look for it. I don't waste taxpayers' money to look for things that I have no information exists.
You found out there was a gun, at least on April 8th, that belonged to Tyler Robinson. Now you know the guys in the car lied to you at the scene, right?
No.
Oh, they didn't lie to you about no one having a gun.
That does not mean that people lied to me,
Oh,
is what I'm saying.
that means they were truthful, right? In your book.
It's really
It's funny. You laughing?
not funny at all.
Sustained.
Well, the point is, when you find out there's a gun, at least belonging to Tyler Robinson, one of the assailants or posse that went over my client's house, why didn't you go back and check behind the fence then?
Because that is not information which would lead me to believe that anybody else in the vehicle was armed.
You're serious about this. You really don't believe anyone else could have been armed. After two guys tell you nobody is armed, the third guy tells them, Tyler Robinson, you know that he told the first officers and the officer in the hospital, he never said he had a gun, right? He lied about that too.
No, sir.
You don't know that?
That they lied? No.
That Tyler Robinson did not tell the first responding officers, and he did not tell the officer in the hospital who interviewed him. I think it was Detective Ethany, something like that. You knew that Tyler Robinson never told anybody from law enforcement he had a gun until you confronted him on the 8th. Right?
I knew that Tyler Robinson had just been shot 3 times. He was in an extremely traumatic situation, and it is not abnormal at all during an extremely traumatic situation for someone to not remember things that you and I think would be important or remember things that you and I may think wouldn't be important. It is not.
Answer my question.
I did.
You didn't. My question is, isn't it true Tyler Robinson did not tell the first responding officers while he was sitting up, and according to the paramedics, he was doing okay as his vitals and his speech. You don't even know that, do you? You never heard that, did you?
Heard what? I'm sorry, I didn't understand
Sorry.
that one.
That the paramedics who came, there was testimony from a paramedic here, that the paramedic said that he was okay in his speech and his thoughts, and there was testimony that he was sitting up in pain, but he was sitting up on an upward trajectory sitting up on the floor. You don't know that, do you?
I don't know that he said that. I'm having trouble understanding what you're asking me,
You know
sir.
Tyler Robinson's condition when the police first found him before the paramedics came, do you?
Now I know that they administered first aid, but
Did you ever look at the paramedics report or talk to any of the paramedics to find out this guy was talking okay and speaking okay and he had clear speech?
no.
So why are you making an assumption? He just got shot. He was not all with it. And it's not unusual for people who are not all with it to forget things. Why are you making that assumption if you don't even know Tyler Robinson was like that?
I'm not making an assumption
Why did you make that speech a few minutes ago, or that statement rather?
because I'm explaining the normal reaction that I have witnessed time and time and time again in homicide investigations and just investigations in general.
All right, so let me go back to my question. Isn't it true Tyler Robinson did not tell the first deputies at the scene that he tossed a gun or he had a gun? Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
Isn't it true at the hospital when he was... Who spoke to him at the hospital, do you know?
That was Detective Ema.
Ema. What's his full name?
Polsner Ema.
Okay. And he's a homicide detective?
No, sir. He's a gang detective.
Okay. A lot of experience?
I believe so.
More than you, right?
I'm sure he does.
Okay. And he was tasked with speaking to Tyler Robinson, right?
Yes, sir.
Tyler Robinson did mention to him, Detective Ema, Posner Ema, that he tossed a gun or hit a gun anywhere, right?
You're absolutely right.
First time he ever did that was when you confronted him.
When I spoke with him, yes, sir.
Wasn't a confrontation, it was just a speech. Just talking to him, right?
It was an interview.
Grill him at all, did you?
Grill him?
Yeah, grill him, like I'm trying to do with you. Forcefully trying to get to the truth. You didn't do that, did you?
I didn't try to force anything. No, sir.
You said, tell me what happened. Is this your gun? What happened after that? That was your attitude, right?
I don't know what attitude you're alleging, sir.
One that didn't care. You didn't really care about this case, did you?
That is absolutely not true, sir.
Okay, so when you find out he has a gun, there's no reason in the world you would search behind this fence or the fence next to the gas station on the other side. North side, right?
Correct.
Not important.
I never said that.
But it's good.
Because I can only look for evidence that I have information may exist.
And you ignore the fact that the decedent was sitting there with his hand. And I can take a gun and put it in my hand and show you it's exactly the same position as someone taking a gun out of their hand. Do you believe me on that? Or you want me to show you?
I ignored nothing, sir.
Well, you disagree there was a possibility this man had a gun in his hand, the decedent, the way his fingers were shaped? You don't know that?
You
disagree with that?
disagree that he had a gun in his hand?
Possibly had a gun.
Many things are possible, sir, but it's not necessarily consistent with that.
And you have medical training as a medical examiner?
I absolutely never said that.
You have forensic training in terms of death grips and have read articles about military people who hold guns and are unfortunately killed in the line of duty?
I don't have that expertise, no, sir.
Okay, so it never even dawned on you that the man sitting in the passenger seat who's died could have possibly had a gun in his hand prior to death?
I would say no, because other factors would lead me to believe that that was not the case.
Because the other two guys, first of all, told you no one had a gun, right?
No, sir.
How hard would it be to ask the 19th groups of defense area before you Broadway? You could have done that if you wanted to, right?
Absolutely.
You had a drone look up there?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Ladder?
Yes, sir.
No, you know the truth. If they dump something, you're not in that area. Right?
If I had done all those things, yes, sir.
Not something you even thought about doing, right?
It's not something I focused on because I had no information that that was a thing.
How do you uncover the truth if someone's lying to you and trying to sell you a bill of goods, trying to let you think they're innocent victims? In any case, how do you challenge them and go around and investigate to find out if these people are being honest with you? Or you just take everyone at face value who claims they're a victim?
Because when I have evidence which suggests otherwise, I do.
Oh, but you can't get evidence if you don't challenge somebody, correct?
I don't challenge every single person unless I have reason to believe or to challenge them.
You didn't challenge anyone in this case, did you? Any of the witnesses? None.
Challenge and what I don't know what you're referring to, sir.
Referring to trying to get to the truth, saying, why did you lie to me when I was on scene? Why did you tell me no one had a gun? Why didn't you do that?
Because the statements they made were not necessarily lies.
Neither Chris Lowe or Keyshawn Jones told you at the gas station area that Keyshawn said in the group chat that my client Travis Rudolph is a dead man walking, right?
Well, Mr. Lowe wasn't involved in that text conversation, so I wouldn't expect him to know that.
I'm going to answer my question. You don't know if anyone showed it to him, do you?
No, sir, I
You didn't even ask.
don't. No, I didn't.
To this day, you never called Chris Lowe and said, Mr. Lowe, do you know about this? group message? Did anyone show it to you or talk to you about it? Did any of the fellows talk about it? You didn't do that.
No, sir.
You didn't answer my question about Keyshawn Jones or Crislow. Neither one of them mentioned to you at the scene, 40th and Broadway, that Keyshawn sent a message to his sister shortly before this shooting happened that Travis is a dead man walking. You didn't get that from either one of those gentlemen, right?
Not on the night of this incident, no, sir.
You never got it from Keyshawn. You found it on his phone, but he never told you that, right?
I
In
can't.
an interview, sworn interview, never told you that.
Are you telling me, or
I'm telling you and asking you. You agree?
you ask me, or are you telling me, sir?
I'm asking you, isn't that true? He never told you that on a sworn interview to this day.
I can't recall if that specific thing was mentioned or not.
Well, go look in your notes and see if you can tell us when he told you that. Yeah, you have a
Want me to
homicide
check?
book and you have all your reports. You save them all, right? If that refreshes your memory, look in your notes and tell me, isn't it, if there's a possibility when he told you that he texted Travis Rudolph, I'm not Travis, his sister, and Tyler Robinson, that Travis is a dead man walking. I'm asking about what you found on his phone. I'm asking you an interview that was sworn to.
That was sworn to, no, sir.
Never told you that, right?
Not in a sworn interview, no, sir.
Not in any reports that it was an unsworn interview that he told you that, is it?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so he never told you that, period. Right?
Okay, possibly. No.
Possibly or no?
I,
It's important.
I don't recall whether that was something that was said to me beforehand.
Tell me anywhere in your report that Keyshawn Jones told you and admitted to you that he told Travis, told his sister and Tyler Robinson that Travis is a dead man walking on a text message, a group text.
There is no report of that, sir.
He never told you, right?
I've answered that question twice, sir.
You're not answering clearly. I don't follow the answer. Now you're saying he did not tell you that, right?
No, I'm saying there is no report of him making that statement, and I agree there is no sworn statement where he didn't say that, but I can't recall if that was something that was brought up during an unsworn conversation with him.
Well, you're good at note taking and writing reports. I mean, that's part of your job. You would have put that in the report, right? Disagree with that?
I would think so, yes, sir.
So, would you agree you never once confronted Keyshawn Jones? You found out about those messages when his phone that was in the back of the car that he couldn't get back because whatever was going on, it was in the trunk. You all kept it, right? You didn't give it back that phone.
No, sir,
Why'd you give it back to him?
because it was inside the vehicle that a incident victim was in.
I don't know who really this case is, right?
That's false.
There's no personal knowledge. What really happened that night? Other than a couple of guys told you for a few minutes, and all the other investigation will talk about what you did. You may have an opinion, but you don't really know what happened, do you? You personally?
Based on my investigation, I have determined who the victims are in this incident.
Okay. By not searching the fence area, by not searching the roofs, that solidifies your opinion who the victim is, right?
The totality of my investigation is what tells me who my victims are.
We'll keep talking about your totality. How many West Palm police officers do you think were there? You collected all the body cams. Remember you told that to the prosecutor? Was there at least 25, 30 West Palm Beach police officers at that scene on 40th and Broadway at different times?
I collected 13 body-worn camera videos, and I asked for all the body-worn camera videos related to this incident.
Do you believe there was more officers, or you don't know?
I don't believe so. I know I asked for all of them, and I received 13.
Did anyone do a log of who was in that crime scene or not in that crime scene? Broadway, so you would know how many people were inside of it?
There would have been, yes.
Where's that?
I'm not sure. There should have been.
You're the keeper of the records, right?
You're right.
You don't have that.
I don't believe I do.
You can't tell us how many supervisors showed up, how many police officers showed up from the city of West Palm before you got there, right?
Before I got there, no, sir.
And how about when you got there? How many were left in that area, in the street, in the parking lot, in the vicinity, right around that area?
was consistent with the information that I received from West Palm Beach Police Department.
13th.